Councillor Brooks Hill. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the regular council minutes of June 25th, 2019. Councillor Charlotte, Councillor Brooks Hill. All those in favor?
Just a couple issues on.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the business of those regular council meetings right now. Councillor Elliott.
Just a couple things that came up in those minutes. We had a presentation from the food security group, and I just wanted to make sure that the message that we sent to the EDCM is clear. Food security to me up to that point was protecting the farmland, the seeds, and concerns with climate change, and ensuring that we have a sustainable food network in our community. I think the message that they brought in that presentation was more about poverty reduction. So I think if we're going to create a message, both are important, but I think that they're different messages. So I want to make sure that when we go to UBCM, or if we agree with what they asked, we make sure that we're clear on what we support. We support partly both, but I think the way it was presented was good.
Just a second before you go ahead, if you don't mind, I'll chair the meeting. So, Councillor Elliott, in communications on item 13, we have a UBCM resolution there. So I think at that time I would like you guys to discuss the resolution. Is that okay?
Fair enough.
All right. Any other further business relating to the minutes of June 25th?
And just another issue on the financial plan that we approved for the next 5 years. Just general observations. The sewer issue, the smell on the south side is significantly different, lower this year. And whatever was done last year in preparation, there must be some acknowledgement. I think there were steps taken last season about doing some improvement to the sewer system. So the previous, Mike Thomas, the engineer, had done implemented some changes to the system. So they have worked, in my perception anyway. So I think that should be acknowledged that there is progress on that front.
Thank you for that comment. And so what Mr. Thomas has said in the past, and Mr. Pendergast and Mr. Komanowski all dealing with that, sometimes we don't get to the issue until it raises its head. So when we get the smell, that's when we can deal with it. And unfortunately, we have to go through that. So far, it's been pretty good. Some residents are complaining down there, but for the most part, it's good. And yes, acknowledgement to Mr. Thomas and his crew for their ability to work with that. So thank you for that. Any other business relating to the minutes of June 25th? Okay, I'm just going to move on then. Number 5A, our annual report. There's a motion on the table if someone wants to provide that. Councillor Brooks Hill. Councillor Charlotte. Seconding. Any discussion on the annual report?
Do we have to read the motion?
You could. Yeah. Okay, sure. Will you make the motion then?
That the 2018 annual report be approved.
And Councillor Charlotte, you're going to second that. So, councillors, is there any comment on that annual report? So I'm going to ask the public, those of you who are in the gallery, is there any of you that would like to make comment on the annual report that's been provided? Saying none, thank you. I want to thank the staff for putting that annual report together. That's great. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Just announcements from the mayor. I just want to say a couple thank yous. First of all, to Megan and her colleagues and staff for putting together the 120th Gala. I think it was a great event, and I thank the community members that were present. Appreciate them being there. And also, again, to Megan and all those who were present for the July 1st celebrations, including the parade and cutting of the cake, and all the people present who were speaking, including the musicians. So thank you again. So I'm going to move on to delegations and presentations. Lucie and Don Nettleton, you're here. If you would like to come forward to the podium, please.
Okay, just go ahead.
Okay, just before you start, Lucie, when we do delegations, so the intention of council is to listen. I know that you have some requests. We'll take those requests, but we will endeavor to talk about those requests or deal with them until a subsequent meeting. So I want you to carry on and present. Council will listen. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lucie Bergeron, and I'm your community librarian here in Revelstoke. I was promoted to this position in January, but I have been with the library for 15 years. With me here is Don Nettleton, and he is the CEO of the Okanagan Regional Library. Before I go on, I just want to tell you I'm an introvert. I'm a book person, and I'm pretty nervous, so please bear with me. So I'm here today to talk to you about RevLab, and I'm just going to go ahead and so I'm using free software. Apologies. I can't see the notes. I wonder if you can help me quicker. So I'm visually impaired as well, so I can't see where I'm pointing. Yay, thank you. Here we go. What is RevLab? That has been causing a little bit of confusion in the community, so I'm here to clear that up, I hope. So it's going to be an amazing community makerspace. Let me just carry on a little bit. So, we're going to, it's a technology-enabled makerspace that will provide new and exciting opportunities for learning, innovation, and creativity in the community. So it's a no-barrier facility, and it will be physically part of the library. It will feature the latest innovative and creative technologies and equipment most people could not access otherwise. Amazing, thank you. And it's going to allow people to experience hands-on digital tech and literacy learning. So RevLab is partially funded through the ORL and the Columbia Basin Trust, and it's going to feature the following. So you can see the little picture up there, a multimedia recording studio that's going to include video recording equipment and a green screen. And then, click the next one. Great, thanks. So it's also going to have a whisper room for sound recording and podcasting. And it's going to have the full Adobe Media Suite installed on a computer for multimedia, digital editing, and production. We're also pretty excited about the digitization equipment. So that'll be for converting old photos, film, and audio to digital formats. It will also have, a virtual gaming headset, a small makerspace Cricut machine for cutting paper, leather, and vinyl. And this is just really entry-level makerspace stuff. An expansion of our current STEAM teaching collection for children and teens. So we've been doing that for a while, and I have a little video here if you want to have some fun. I think if we click, it'll come up. And no, okay, there it is. And we'll just fire this up. This is the kind of thing we've been doing for a little while here. I think, oh, no, hang on. We've gone to something else. Okay. I have read that book, Death by PowerPoint, and here we go. Sure, okay. Looks like the little video is actually, no, that's not it. Okay. So yeah, just go back and we'll pretend that I didn't mention the video. It's too bad. Okay, so why this project is important right now in Revelstoke? Well, it ties in really well with lots of other things that are going on in the community. But what's important about this project is the no barrier piece of it. And on to the next slide. So in our 21st century world, digital literacy is more necessary than ever before. And we are on the front lines of this in the library. We are dealing with people who have really low digital and tech literacy every day. And to have a strategy for giving these people the skills they need to navigate the world right now is super super important. Every day we help people. So I'm sorry, I've strayed from I'm passionate about this part. Libraries are about literacy of all kinds, and it's our mandate to be opportunity makers and provide free access to information of all kinds. So lack of access to digital and tech learning opportunities creates significant barriers for people as more and more business is conducted online. So we're talking about people who need to fill in government forms, who need to apply for jobs, find somewhere to live. We support people who have really low digital and tech literacy all the time in being able to do these things, which are basic necessities of life. And so right now we have 4 internet computers that people are in constant use. And this is just an expansion of this. This is like trying to give them, instead of us going in and putting a Band-Aid on, we want to do some actual teaching and help these people to access the resources that they need to actually just have a viable life. So next slide. Learning in the 21st century is evolving in a way that makes it critical for us all to be self-directed learners who can navigate technology and the digital world with innovative, informed, and connected thinking. So again, interacting with digital resources and tech gives people transferable skills. So in a public space where people can actually, for free, with no barriers, access this kind of thing, it puts them in a position where they get the skills that they need to, again, going back to what we were just talking about, be able to access what they need to have a viable life. And it's like, so we've got a growing community of entrepreneurs in Revelstoke that will need all types of digital and tech support opportunities, and RevLab can provide that with an online presence so critical to many small businesses, free access to the multimedia recording studio to create quality media content has obvious advantages. So again, we're just tying into what's already going on in Revelstoke, and we're providing no barrier, easy to access, and again, a service that, something that also is not available, the multimedia recording studio, and creating content is super important for businesses. It's also very expensive, but if you get the skills to do it on your own, I mean, obviously, your business becomes so much more viable. So I had a wonderful opportunity to attend the Collective Impact meeting, and the concept of asset inventory as a first step towards addressing poverty and social development issues was central to that meeting in my mind. And I just want to mention that the library is already playing a significant role in our community supporting vulnerable populations. So we're providing access to and support with the technology necessary for many people to file government forms, to conduct job searches, and to find places to live. And when they can't find a place to live, we are acting as a day shelter. So we are very full, especially in the winter. We have many, many people in the library who are studying, working, and also when they're living in a house where there's 12, 15 people, and it's just not a place they want to be, we give them a peaceful place to hang, a relatively peaceful place to hang out. So we're currently an asset in reducing poverty, but with our traffic up 50% over last year, we're stretched both in terms of staffing and in terms of space. So, I welcome you to come to the library in the winter at 3 o'clock and just check it out. There are people sitting on the floor. There are people at our counters standing working, and it's great. We love to be that busy, but we could use a bit more space and we could use more computer terminals. So on to slide 11. Work BC, what's happened with them. They're running on very limited hours, and we're already experiencing more pressure on our resources. We anticipate an even larger demand on our resources this coming winter. So we act like a little business center in the season when people are coming to work, and we have people printing resumes, and we troubleshoot for them, we edit for them, we print for them. It's really busy, really busy. So, okay. So, I love this picture. So we ask that you consider the importance of the library in our community as an asset that promotes innovative 21st century learning, supports literacy initiatives of all kind, works in partnership with a host of other agencies, and provides support to many vulnerable populations. Further, with RevLab, we will be supporting business initiatives and entrepreneurs and creating a culture of tech and digital innovation in Revelstoke from the ground up. So, on to our request. So, and that's the end of it. I'm leaving you with this lovely picture. So we did a family portrait with a book one day, and we had families come in and have a portrait taken. So that's just a picture that we took that day. So with the ORL and the CBT poised to commit resources into our community, I would ask the council commit to making a significant contribution to this much-needed space. Support the creation of the space needed to house RevLab through plans for an addition or the installation of a portable. And include the library in the OCP. We're providing some pretty critical services in our rapidly changing community, and an inventory of those services would help to inform planning to everyone's benefit. And that's it. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for bearing with my technical problems.
Well, Lucie, thank you. I appreciate you coming. Mr. Nettleton, do you want to add anything while you're there?
No, I think she's probably expressed what RevLab's about. I think just a couple of statistics to give you an idea of some of the changes. Things like people visits. I pulled some statistics for 2018. There were 68,000, almost 69,000 people visits to the library. A couple of years ago, there was about 60,000. So there's a fair change in there. Things like wireless sessions. Total time in 2018 was 12,974 hours. 2016 was 6,000, so it's more than double what it was even just 2 years ago. So it gives you an idea that I think what we're finding is the library is bursting at the seams as we're trying to bring forward both the normal programming and the other programming that we're doing to meet the needs of the community, plus this whole technical area. We're just jammed to the seams and can't quite fit it in. We have significant contributions available to us from the Columbia Basin Trust funds that are contingent just on having that extra space to work, and we certainly want to make sure that that money is put to good use and within the community, as opposed to not being able to get that extra space and having to walk away from that type of contribution. So that's really what we're here for, is just to make sure that everybody's up to speed. We're trying to make sure we partner with the other group that's got the Fab Lab and that sort of thing to make sure that we're kind of the initial stepping stone, the initial sort of entry with sort of barrier-free. They take it on from there with more of the, once you get further into it and really serious about it, you kind of move that direction. But this is kind of open to everybody in the community to get their foot in the door and get them up to speed.
Great. Well, we appreciate everything you're doing. We're supportive of the library and all that you're doing, so we'll take your request and talk about that at another time. Councillors, is there anyone that would like to make comments or ask a question of Ms. Bergeron or Mr. Nettleton? Councillor Ryan.
I was just wondering, is there ever an intention to have a for-profit aspect in any kind of way, or is it always going to be no barrier?
Yeah, with the library, it's always going to be no barrier.
Okay, even for I think you mentioned that there might be opportunities for businesses to go in there and use the facilities, but that would still be at no cost.
Yeah. And again, it's a the equipment's there, we can take them to a certain distance once they get to a real serious thing, or if they need, like we're not at this stage planning to have like 3D printing or something there. If they need to go that direction, that would be something that would take them further along. But we could give them some of the technical skills to begin to at least explore how to do that, and then the equipment and things for that would be going further.
And all the programming costs would be paid for by the contributions you have from CUT and not from the city. The city would be more helping with building the actual facility.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, the equipment side of it is the Columbia Basin Trust and the library. Columbia Basin Trust is putting in about 70% library, 30% of that part. And then Columbia Basin Trust has given a small amount, about 30% towards up to a certain maximum of the building space, but it's the rest of that that we need to fundraise
I'm actually, if I could just slide in here, realizing that I missed an entire little bit. So, and it's just the money piece. So the ORL and the CBT are contributing $175,000 to this project, and we need $119,000 for a dedicated makerspace, like to do a little expansion. That's just based on an estimate the city gave us. So it would be a physical addition to the library. So it's part of the funding is contingent upon us creating that space. There's a deadline, it's by the end of the summer. And so meanwhile, the ORL is actively fundraising to reach this goal. And I'm going to be looking for corporate sponsorship going forward from here. So.
Okay, great. Good. Councillors, any other further comments or questions? Councillor Allen?
So the purpose of the library is evolving. It's been evolving for the last 10 years. And, how's the book business? Well, I can go and say basically what's happened is within their book business is sort of flat. So if you looked at our system as a whole, we have about 2.8 million circulations in a year. It's just carrying there. About just over 2 million are carrying on. This is with books and materials. The electronic digital technology is taking right off and skyrocketing. So it's going up 20-25% per year for the last couple of years. Again, books aren't disappearing, they're just kind of staying flat, but and still the vast majority of what we do, but the electronic, digital. And many of you may have seen some of the other comments going around from other municipal councils providing support for the fact of making sure that we can get access to the digital content, which is a challenge for some of the big five publishers are doing right now. So that's another topic for another day.
Just, I've been in many Whistler, Canmore, various other resort communities. They have, the library becomes sort of, it becomes a focal point for the people who are a bit more transient, need a space for quiet time, or just, it becomes another space, a third or fourth spot on their list of places to go. It's in Whistler and in Canmore, I mean, those spaces are thriving, they're back. I've seen it.
We're actually finding that not only in the resort communities, but just about every one of our communities, that's really what's starting to happen. Even centers like Kelowna and others, it varies, sometimes it's more seasonal depending on the community, but it's becoming really a social focal point. And I think it's probably because there aren't a lot of other places. We have Wi-Fi, it's a comfortable place, and it's kind of barrier-free so people feel welcome. The other thing that we've done is our staff in the last couple of years have taken a lot of dealing with homeless training and dealing with that sort of thing to sort of make sure that some of the social challenges and other things that are constantly coming in there, that we can deal with people from all backgrounds and ages so that they all feel accepted and welcome, and deal with some of the security issues and other things that come with that. And that continues to help people feel more welcomed and a part of it. Not without its challenges, but it certainly becomes the focal point of the community.
Anything else?
City of Calgary just did a major.
Oh, that library is amazing.
How much the draw is to, or how it changed the perspective of all people who visited. And so, wow, this is something else.
Yeah, I encourage anybody going to Calgary to take a look at their new central library. It's amazing what $250 million can do for you.
And please visit us at the library. I mean, it's just a little one, but it's really busy and happening, and there's a great vibe in there. We have a lot of fun. And it's libraries are evolving into community space and as an information portal, and we have a lot to offer to, especially I guess for me, the vulnerable populations in our community. This is an opportunity, and there's a lot of incidental learning going on. It would be nice to have some focused learning, and part of our plan is to have a laptop cart and do direct teaching and give people skills so that they're not unable to access services they need. So.
Councillor Sherwood.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time this morning walking Mike and myself through the library realities. And it's fascinating. So I grew up in Winnipeg, and the library was a major part of my life growing up. I'm curious as to if you had any conversations. Part of your talk this morning, you were talking about a new relationship with UBC down in the Okanagan. And I'm wondering if there's been any conversations with the Okanagan College, because we have a campus here in the community, and I know they're looking at developing and upgrading, and I see the difference, and it makes sense to have all these different avenues for people of different walks of life to access where they feel comfortable. But I also see an opportunity for us to maybe encourage more and more collaboration, especially in a community where our resources are tight. And there's only so many people to go around. The biggest expense is the wages. So if there's any collaboration possible or already been discussed with the Okanagan College, and yeah, when you mentioned Work BC, with them cutting back, I can definitely see that being an issue. But traditionally, Revelstoke has had an issue with literacy issues. And so especially as we go more digital, I know City Hall's been facing this, where people just don't know how to fill out those forms. Where if we can work together, that we know where these resources are to help people, maybe we can all help each other a bit more. But I'm just curious.
We had some conversations with the college when we were initially applying for this. They were contemplating whether they could fit into it, and they found that they weren't far enough along in their planning. They didn't have enough resources already there. They were still kind of exploring what courses they could offer and what sort of teaching staff and stuff they could, whether there's enough take in the community to kind of offer what they wanted. So they withdrew and started to go work with you. But yeah, we definitely cooperate with any sort of their school district, other things that what you don't want to do is kind of totally duplicate what everybody else is doing.
Well, exactly.
But we get people that come to the library that won't come anywhere else. Both because they feel comfortable there, they may not feel comfortable in a college or school, and also just because of the whole barrier-free sort of aspect of it. So,
And I should add that we collaborate with groups in the community, like Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy, a lot. And then just we're into being opportunity makers. We're into being collaborators, and so that would yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Appreciate your time. Councilor Ollie, you have one more question?
The relationship with the BYLAWS and the RevLab, has that been clarified?
I think it's starting to be, and there have been some communication problems. Interestingly, there's been some technology problems, so bouncing emails, but we have started to have. There's been a few attempts to kind of talk about how we collaborate, how we don't duplicate, and I think it's really rolling now. I would say based on conversations that have just started to happen. So yeah.
But basically, I think that the key is we are more the sort of no barrier introductory door. They are more the serious tech entrepreneurial thing once they get further down with a little bit higher level of equipment. I think where we would see it is our people, once they've kind of got the taste of what they want to do, would probably go their direction to get further into it. We would see ourselves collaborating that some of the training that we need to do would be through volunteer teachers and trainers in the community. A lot of those would be people connected with the BYLAWS who would have that kind of level of skill that we'd be drawing from within the community to kind of do some of that teaching and training. So that's sort of coordination back and forth. That's something we're going to have to flush out as both groups actually get a facility in place and get things up and actually running. But yeah, I think we're both aware that we want to kind of coordinate things and not. There'll be some overlap, but not a whole lot. I don't think.
Anything else? Thank you again.
No, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. Revelstoke Search and Rescue has a presentation. Giles, would you like to come forward to the podium? Welcome.
Thank you. Your worship, councilors, staff, friends. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. So I'll start with a bit of background. My name is Giles Shearing. I've been a member of Revelstoke Search and Rescue for 10 years. I'm on the board of directors, and I also am one of the 5 search managers that help run all of the tasks that we perform. Dave Healy is also with us in the back there. He's one of our SAR managers. I'm here representing our board, our managers, and our 70-odd volunteers that work with us. Rebel Search and Rescue has been in the community since 1952. The people that participate with us most have to complete an 80-hour ground search and rescue training course, and then they go on to complete specialty training in rope rescue, swiftwater rescue, avalanche. We have a number of cart and dog handlers. So our members are mounted ninjas. They're serious mounted people. And Rebel Search and Rescue is one of the top 10 busiest teams in the province of BC. There's 82 teams that perform amazing work all over the province. You probably just heard there was a fellow found 5 days later in Strathcona Park on the island near Campbell River just yesterday. There's people out all year long. And so we're in our region, we are the busiest team. April of 2018, or April to April of the last year, we were up to 70 tasks. For comparison, North Shore Search and Rescue, which has a ginormous populace, is doing about 110, 120 a year. So, with our small team here, we're performing a lot of rescues in our community. We also go to other communities on mutual aid tasks, and we help teams in Nelson and Cranbrook and Shuswap perform their tasks as well. In 2017, we formed a society after all those years and created a board. Rebel Search and Rescue receives funding, a little bit of funding through the provincial government. Through the tasks that we do, we get reimbursements, but we also, for the last 4 years and for 2 more years to come, have been receiving approximately $100,000 a year from the provincial government. The number that we receive is based on how busy we are and the specialty teams that we have. So that's about as large a contribution from the provincial government as any team gets. So we have been receiving that money, and if you watch the Canada Day Parade, you probably saw our nice truck, which was actually purchased by the Zabo family of the late Jared Zabo, who was lost down in Arrow Lakes. They've been a wonderful contributor of ours. But the side-by-side was purchased with government funds, which is about $70,000. It's on tracks, and we used to have to drive or sled up to Boulder and put someone in a sled that was towed behind the snowmobile, and they have snow in their face and exhaust, and there was no medical attendant there to treat them. And now we have this beautiful side-by-side that we can set up to the cabin. Our subject gets transported in a heated cab with lights and attendant. The level of care is much better. We work under the auspices of Emergency Management BC, which is a branch of the Provincial Ministry of Justice. So all of our members are member of BC Search and Rescue Association and EMBC. We have a number of specialty teams, snowmobile rescue team, helicopter ops, Class D fixed line or HETS, which is our guys that hang on the end of the line. And we have even tighter requirements for those rescue professionals that are than a lot of other teams in the province. They all have to be CAA level 2, rope rescue, crevasse rescue. So the people that are going out to rescue missing and injured subjects are very highly trained. Avalanche, rope rescue, swiftwater, canine search and rescue team. So that's a bit of the background on us. We are a busy team with a lot of really engaged citizens. So Revelstoke is in need of an equipment and storage and training facility. We have more equipment. We've been getting more money. We've been spending that money because we have to. And we feel that all the equipment that we buy is very useful to the tasks that we perform. So we don't have really fancy trucks with tons of lights, and we're not going for the fanciest of everything. We're buying equipment that we feel provides a better level of care to the subjects that we go out to help. So we have currently a 30-foot sled UTV trailer. We have an 18-foot swiftwater trailer with a couple of riverboats. We have one rescue seated right now, and we're going to be purchasing another shortly. We're looking down the road at buying a jet boat. We have another utility trailer, and then we also have a need for training space. So that's sort of our inside building requirements, and we also have a need for outside parking and outside training, and we've got a couple of sea cans that we're looking to store. So right now our equipment is spread out throughout the community. We have some on West Side Road, some on the Industrial Park, some at our office here in Revelstoke. And just to be clear that we are not looking to replace our office that we share with the RCMP. As an amazing facility. It allows the RCMP to come over and, talk to us right away. We have the bay door there where we keep a lot of our specialty equipment, and that's a fantastic asset. We're very grateful to the City of Revelstoke for providing. So we're just looking for an indoor space that we can build and store all of our other equipment. So our plan for this equipment and training facility would be in 2019 to acquire land, in 2020 complete a design, structural steel design, or whatever we end up going with, doing some additional fundraising and looking for community support, additional grant funding. In 2021, look at completing the construction and having the building operational. So like I mentioned, the interim solution right now is having our stuff stored all over town, and our president has a yard down in the industrial park, so in the interim, he's being very generous in allowing us to store a lot of equipment there. We have some equipment stored out at Selkirk Mountain, so it's kind of all over the place. But this is my 11 p.m. rendering of what a laydown would look like. With the red is sort of the inside of the building with some bay doors and some parking for our members. So what we're looking for from the City of Revelstoke is an opportunity to work with city staff to potentially identify half an acre to an acre of city-owned land for a shop that's at least 50 by 50 and similar parking, that we can construct a building and store all of our equipment there. And then there was some ideas of potentially waive DCCs and in-kind support for servicing. So we would like to take any grant money that we get and use that towards building a building. And if we could get some assistance with some of the other costs associated with putting up such a building, we'd be very grateful. And I just included some photos of other buildings that different search and rescue groups around the province have. North Shore Search and Rescue has 10 bays in their $1 million facility, multi-million-dollar facility. Kamloops Search and Rescue has just been granted a building and over $40 million in funding from a family that will be helping them to build a facility. Nelson Search and Rescue got an old community center and big parking lot area, so they built, I think, a 5-bay storage area. So we're not looking for anything too extreme. We're just looking for a good-sized building that will store our equipment and allow us to continue to perform the service of the community that we do.
Thanks, Charles. Councillors, any questions? I think because I've worked with search and rescue for the better part of my career, want to say thank you. Thank you on 2 points. First of all, for coming to us with your request. We've listened today, and so we'll encourage you to put in a formal request with our staff, and we'll deliberate on the time regarding that request. I want to thank you, your volunteers, for what you do for our community. I get to see the sad times as well as what volunteers do, but we appreciate you coming back time and time again. And there's some wonderful stories of lives saved and people rescued, and we want to thank you and your crew for doing that. It's important work, and it doesn't go unacknowledged. We talk about it on a regular basis. You just don't get to see that in public print, but thank you, and hopefully the media will pick that up today. And thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to our members.
Really appreciate the dedication of your volunteers and the expertise. Some of them have gone out of their way to get their training and do that. And I, because of my business, get to see that on a regular basis. And when I see one of you dangling from the bottom of a helicopter, I'm going like, I'm glad you guys are here. I don't look good on the bottom of a helicopter, I don't think. But anyway, I really appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
So, councillors, any questions, any comments that you want to make? Councillor Allen?
How about those 70 call-outs? How many snowmobile related, ski related? Most of them are there.
Right. Are they out of towners coming and causing problems community by getting lost? No, it's a real mix. A lot of our work is in the wintertime. for sure, and it's related to skiers and snowmobilers. But Revelstoke Search and Rescue, we respond to 9 tasking agencies in the province: the Coroner Service, Parks Canada, RCMP, BC Ambulance. So we can be tasked by a number of different agencies. We have been on searches for lost children, for people with dementia, Alzheimer's. We've been on searches that people just go missing. The fellow that I spoke about in Strathcona Park, he was a local that knew the trails well and went out, with the snacks and water and food, and the weather rolled in, and he was lost for 5 days. And he credits his survival to breaking into a cabin and keeping himself warm and finding food. So it's a bit of a myth that it's just out of towners, or that it's just skiers, constant skiers. And we're happy to go and help people at any time. And if we get called up and someone is self-rescued or is okay, that's the best case scenario for us. So we really do strive for the most positive outcome.
Just the majority of your call-outs, are they snowmobile related or ski related?
Dave does a lot of our statistics, but you might think.
Roughly 60-40 split, but that does change from year to year. On a good year, it's a 50-50 split. On a bad year, we're spending more time on Boulder as opposed to our
Okay. Thank you. And we're seeing 2 more water rescue calls. So we've had searches up on Kinbasket, Revelstoke Lake, Arrow Lake here just the other week. So we're trying to boost our swift water and flat water response capabilities as well.
And is there a location that's ideal that you just got places that might?
I mean, we don't know all the land the city has available for use, but potentially either on West Side Road or down in the industrial park seem like larger areas of land. But we're open to seeing if there's a good parcel of land that might work that the city has.
Okay. We'll definitely give some thought and have some discussion on that as to where we best see something working if we're available in our area. Basically, well.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Okay, we're going to go on to 11A, staff reports. I believe we have a presentation.
Today I'm presenting 2 separate development permits at the same time. I'll explain why in a moment. The zoning for this site is CDO 9, which accommodates a range of commercial-oriented retail and accommodation that was adopted in the mid-2000s, 2008, 2007, I believe. And we're in development permit area D, scenic corridor, which is established for the purpose of form and character. So I've just got a context map there that shows the surrounding zoning. It's a little bit hard to read, but we've got the subject site there, which is CD9, that extends down here. And then we've got C4 around the area here, which is all highway commercial zoning. Our Victoria Road corridor is a similar highway commercial, and called service commercial, so it's a very commercial-oriented area. The development permit areas align with the zones, so all of this darker mustard color is the scenic corridor area, and this is our multifamily development permit area. For context, the guidelines of the scenic corridor area are there. I linked to them in your council report. They are general and not specific, but call for high quality construction and are intended to complement the historic features of the downtown. The guidelines are intended to help minimize impact to surrounding land uses, particularly when you have residences beside. They suggest designing incorporating design elements which would complement the downtown, and this can include things like cornices, parapets, and canopies, but it's not limited just to that. They call for screening of parking areas, garbage areas, and service areas. They also call for pedestrian access and accommodating vehicles at the same time, and that service areas should not be at the front of buildings. Parking and service areas should not be at the front of buildings. So the reason why we have two is that we've got two separate buildings on one lot, but that one lot has a subdivision application underway, which will carve it into two, and we expect that to be done imminently. I'll show you a better picture, but there's our future lot line right there. So bear with me for a couple of slides here. What we have already is the Ramada Hotel, which was issued a development permit in 2006, and that is constructed and operational, so that's on the farthest west side of the site over here. We also have another development permit that was issued by council in September of last year. That's for a 6-story hotel. That is in the building permit stage and should begin construction this summer. That will be on the eastern side of the site. They're circled over here. And to put all that in context, so the Trans-Canada Highway runs up here, of course, and this is Bend Road across the top. And we've got the Ramada over here, the Mary over here, these two development permits that we're dealing with today. And then we've got a shared parking lot between the two with 3 access points, one there, and then a join between the two right there. And again, there's our subdivision boundary right here. So for the first development permit, this is for a restaurant that will be branded as a Boston Pizza. I can't remember off the top of my head the number of seats that are inside, but it's about a 500 square meter or 5,000 square foot restaurant. It'll use the existing layout of the lot and be oriented right against the property line up here. On the outside, it's got a variety of materials and treatments and colors, which will give it a bit of character. Something to note here is that there's some faux wood siding here and some brickwork here. They've also included signage on this so we can get a sense of where that's going to be located, and that will dictate the location of signage when those permits come in. Our landscaping plan for this site has a buffer along the property line right here and some additional plantings over here. If you've driven by this site recently, you'll notice that this is all just kind of grassy weeds right now, so that'll improve that quite a bit. We've incorporated a pedestrian connection across the site that will connect with the other building and with the Marriott Hotel, and there's an additional crosswalk right here that will connect with the existing Ramada. Part of this project will also include the installation of landscaping islands that were left over from the Ramada Hotel when it was built. And then there's a bit of landscaping running down the property line right here as well. Some variances are proposed embedded within the development permit itself. The first one is to vary the sign bylaw to accommodate fascia signs that do not face the street. This is a fairly significant limitation of our sign bylaw right now. It's oriented more towards buildings that are constructed in the downtown core, so that we don't have signage on the backs of buildings or the sides of buildings where one building might not come to the street the same as the other. So it's intended to only have signs facing the street downtown. In a situation like this where you've got a larger site and internal parking movements, it makes sense to have signage not facing the street. The second variance is to reduce the amount of required parking. What's happened here is that when the Ramada was put in and the original layout was designed, I believe they were anticipating a smaller restaurant. They have since increased the size of it. I included some details in my report about shared parking calculations. We don't have a provision for that in our current bylaw, but it's common in other municipalities where you have complementary uses, where you expect the same person who's staying in the hotel to be using the restaurant, and therefore you don't need to have 2 parking stalls for one person with 1 car. That's the most simple logic. We also have a situation here where the 2 sites are adjoined, and while we could require all of that parking, we would end up with an unnecessary amount that might only serve 1 day of the year. The third variant, I can answer questions about that at the end of the presentation if there are some. The third one is to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 3 meters to 2 meters. I'm going to jump backwards to the landscaping plan. Later in the process here, we realized that there was a sidewalk along the front of the building with the building right against that. And what you end up with in these cases is cars backed up against the wheel stops and usually a 1.2 meter wide sidewalk. And it was a bit of a constraint there and less desirable for pedestrians than having a sidewalk, a landscape buffer, and a building. So we pushed the building over towards the landscaping on this side and added a little bit of extra here. So that was to accommodate that. So I'll move to the other development permit. This is for the other site, including the Marriott Hotel. And we've got the location right there. This is the side facing the parking lot, and this is the side facing the highway. Again, we've got a variety of surface treatments and textures, and a little bit of building articulation built in with the parapet here and some canopies here, and some canopies around the side to provide a bit of weather protection and a little bit of relief from a otherwise flat building face. The materials palette here is similar to the other. We've got some brickwork and some faux woodwork and quite a bit of windows facing the parking lot. On the rear of the building, we've got mostly service entrances and the drive-through windows. And with these areas right here, rather than have blank wall space, we've had them identified as potential locations for tourism-related signage. And that will be coordinated at a later date with Tourism Revelstoke. So we don't have any details right now, but those spaces are intended to accommodate something to spruce up that area. It could be signage, it could be wayfinding materials for the town, it could be historical information. No specifics on that. Again, 2 variances are built into this one. The same one to accommodate the signs that are facing the parking lot. And again, another limitation of our sign bylaw is that it doesn't accommodate drive-through menu boards. So we've included this variance here, and we've ensured that there's landscaping around the drive-through aisle to make sure that they're shielded from view as best as possible. We sent out variance notifications to all the surrounding property owners within 100 meters, and anyone occupying those, and received no comments. It was sent to the Advisory Planning Commission on June 12th. There was a lengthy conversation about pedestrian connectivity across the site, some landscape screening from the highway, and comments towards the overall building form. There was also a question regarding the patio location and the issue of combining corporate branding with the tourism signage concept that we've included. The patio location was one that's not able to be addressed through the development permit. That was at the discretion of the landowner and was not something that we moved forward with. The corporate branding combined with the tourism signage is something that will be dealt with when that partnership is addressed. I don't have details on that right now, but it's something that will be forwarded to Tourism Revelstoke when that conversation happens. And in terms of pedestrian connectivity, screening, and building form, I made a few notes in my report about changes that we made. So what we were able to achieve was the addition of a crosswalk that connected all the buildings across the site. We had them incorporate what we call refuge islands for pedestrians, where you make it to a particular point in the parking lot. Maybe you might have a stroller, or you have trouble walking, and so you're able to take a break in one of those locations, and you're surrounded by landscaping. So that was an addition. They also included the canopies on the buildings. They specified that there are bicycle racks included, and we had an increase in the number of trees, and taller trees included to the landscaping along the rear of the buildings where the drive-through aisle is. So when those trees go in, they're only going to be maybe 6 feet tall and a relatively small caliber, but they will grow. And what we require with the landscaping is that a British Columbia landscape architect draft the plans, and that way we ensure that the species are native to Revelstoke and they'll survive here. Our recommendation today is to approve issuance subject to the conditions in the report, and that was to receive some revised architectural plans to reflect some of those landscaping changes, and to receive the landscaping securities, and then we will be in a position to issue the permits. Thank you.
Councilors, do you have any questions of Mr. Sturgeon at this point? Councilor Charlotte?
I'm trying to find the number. It's asking about the parking. Because originally it says here it requires 1 stall per 3 seats for a restaurant, is what the original required.
That's correct.
So the 64 stalls. And of the restaurant occupants would be coming from the hotel? Kind of
More or less, yeah.
ball picture?
Yeah, it's not a hard and fast rule, it's just a generally
Yeah,
accepted number.
ballpark-ish idea.
There's a lot of assumptions built into it,
Yeah.
but it's a best practice.
Right,
And the amount of times you're gonna see that parking lot full
yeah.
are so few and far between that you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000 a stall construction
Okay.
costs, and then you've got all the negative impacts from it, like heat island effect,
Yeah.
unsightliness, and barren parking lots. So
Okay. And the only reason why I'm a little bit leery about it and wanted to bring it up is I spent a summer working at Denny's. It boggles my brain how busy those highway restaurants get. Because I know when I was there, Denny's is the busiest Denny's in Canada in the summer. It's because you're coming off that highway and you need to get those screaming children out of the car and you want to sit down restaurant, not fast food. So with this being the only other large chain franchise sit-down restaurant on the highway, I could see there being a lot of appeal for the drive-through traffic, like for people to come and take that break. So more so than might otherwise be thought of.
But still, we look at it because those hotels are destinations. So people that are going to be utilizing those restaurants at the peak time of dinner will be usually from the hotels.
Yeah.
Lunchtime crowd, you're going to have the hotel empty.
Right.
And then the people being able to utilize that restaurant or that parking
Yeah.
for that
And
time.
if it's 25% isn't that big of a
So we're one
share, so that's
in
really-
8 people instead
Yeah.
of 1 in 3. So it's not that different. But, yeah.
yeah.
Any further questions of Mr. Sturgeon before we start? Councilor Elliott?
The Dairy Queen building, it had extra space for other commercial entities in that, is that correct? And how much space is available there? Do you know?
I would have to look into that. I don't know if I can answer that right away. The building was divided into 3, and I would say that the Dairy Queen itself was approximately maybe 35% of the building footprint, maybe upwards of 40, slightly bigger, and then the other 2 were smaller. The applicant is here today, and Your Worship, if you'd like to extend that question to him, they might have the answer offhand.
Sure. The applicant like to answer that question?
Yeah, the Dairy Queen is 2,600 square feet, so we have a remaining 2,400 square feet that would be available.
So is that, Mr. Deutsch, going to be split kind of down the middle, 1,200 each? or
Yeah, just
approximately?
based on what the demand that comes in.
Sure.
You know, we have several people who've kind of been inquiring on the space. It might be 1 tenant, it might split into 2 tenants.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it did split maybe 6, it could be as little as 1,600 on one side and 800 on another side.
Does that answer your question, Tom? Okay. Any other questions, of Mr. Sturgeon?
Just, I think on the ABC, there was some comment about bringing Revelstoke flair to the, adding content or elements to the design that would sort of be more complementary to Revelstoke. Was that, you said canopies were the sort of the concession that came up? And do you feel that that's enough?
It meets the stated wording in the guidelines.
Yeah.
I think if you gather up 10 Revelstokians off the street and ask them what those features are, you'll probably get 10 different answers. You might get 6 different opinions around the table. So.
And we don't have a bylaw that's specific that says it has to be those.
No, I don't.
That's what it's got. So.
But I think it is, as a community, you want to embrace or protect what our identity is. And I mean, these are major chains. It's really a unique experience coming to them. You're going to get this anywhere across Canada, but you still want to, and that's a bigger discussion whether OCP, where we want to keep those.
So I'll give this way to Wayne, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. That's one of the things that we developed working through the OCP is actually design guidelines that give us the feeling for Revelstoke and what is that vision, and how do we want to see the scenic corridor. The scenic corridor has basic guidelines, but we don't have urban design guidelines to support that. And that would be identified, and we identify that in the report with the OCP.
Councilor Brooksville?
Well, essentially, I'm going to reiterate what Councilor Elliott said, that my problem with this is essentially the buildings are ugly, or there's no particular character to them. Like Councilor Elliott said, if you were to stand in the parking lot on a cloudy day, you could be anywhere. There's nothing that makes it Revelstoke at all. It's just a parking lot with the same buildings you could find anywhere else. And, you know, fair enough to the developer, we don't have those requirements, those guidelines, so there's nothing to tell them what we as Revelstoke want or require. So I'm a little torn on this because I don't particularly like the project, but I don't think it's fair to, at this point, to say, well, now we want this X, Y, Z, when we haven't even discussed it and there's no, you know, it would just be our opinion. It's not based on what the community wants. And to be honest, none of us are designers, so it wouldn't probably be a very good opinion.
And we don't have guidelines that foresee issues. So just in bearing in mind with what this developer has done with Ramada, and you know, it turned out to be a wonderful building and aesthetically pleasing, that sort of thing. So he is in the room, he's hearing your comments, and as he moves forward, if there's things that he wishes he wants to put in to give it a Revelstoke flair, he'll have that ability. And going forward with that, Councilor Charlotte.
Well, one thing I just wanted to comment on it is I really appreciate the changes, especially the comments I saw from the ABC committee and the changes that we've seen, especially making it more pedestrian friendly and including the bike racks with something like a Dairy Queen in our community, making it easier for kids and for families and people from the community to get there without using a vehicle. When I see similar buildings in other communities, they are not pedestrian friendly. And I've stayed in hotels before where you cannot walk to the next development because there's barely any sidewalks. And it's terrifying trying to negotiate things. So the fact that this is being built with pedestrians in mind, I think does add a certain amount of Revelstoke flair. That as we define what does Revelstoke flair look like, we can move forward with that. But I think all things considered, this looks like a really good proposal.
Councilor Brooks-Hill.
I should mention that the actual layout, the landscaping, a lot has been done to improve the overall project. And correct me if I'm wrong, someone who was here last September, but I believe with the Ramada, the council requested more wood be put in, and I have to say that part of what gives it that aesthetic appeal. And I don't remember if that was put in as a condition of the development permit or if it was just a request from
That was basically the canopy over the front entrance of the hotel, and that was kind of a separate sort of thing. When we're talking about these buildings, these are commercial buildings, kind of going by what Boston Pizza likes to see or Dairy Queen likes to see. So kind of their traditional style as well. And so when we talk about the outside of the buildings moving forward, you've heard what Councillor says. If you're comfortable or able to put more wood in, we'd love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, all I gotta say is, I mean, you guys are nailing it, right? You guys have great city staff right now, they're working really hard, and it's really hard when people are running blind, right? You know, we're trying to provide something with no guidelines, and they have a lot of projects coming in trying to make it all work, and then you have corporate entities guiding us as well, right? So it makes it a little bit tough for everybody. At the end of the day, you know, we have brickwork on there, we do have faux wood, we brought in the, you know, artistic impressions that we want to add in there. We obviously get pushed back from the commercial, and you know, Daniel's been working very hard on this, trying to, you know, balance out all sides. So as a developer, no different than we said with the Marriott, I mean, we want the story to be what Revelstoke is up there on the highway. We want to hear what you guys have to say, but until we have, you know, a sit down like this, and you guys are the representatives of the community, we don't know what people want, right? And Daniel and Mary Ann are sitting there with, you know, thousands of applications and you know, a small window for us to build, and there's a lot of variables, right? But by all means, we want to have a beautiful set of buildings up there that you guys are proud to have that represent people that come into a town that's an amazing city.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Sturgeon? I'm going to ask somebody to start the process with somebody want to go forward here with the first?
I'll give the first crack.
Sure.
That application DP 2019-03, including the following variances, be approved. Can I say it as an agent? A, B, and easy.
Yes.
Thanks. That's the agenda.
Is there a second for that motion, Councillor Elliott? Any further discussion on that motion, talking about the front yard setback and the parking and the sign bylaw? No further discussion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to number 2. Does someone want to put that motion forward? Councillor Brooks Hill.
The final issuance of DP 2019-03 be subject to the following.
Okay, so that's
1, 2, and 3 as in the package.
okay. So receipt, because the public doesn't see this in front of them.
Okay.
Receipt of final security in the amount of $143,922.60 for the landscaping, and receipt of the revised architectural plans reflecting the site plan landscaping plans, according to that. So is there a second for that motion? Councillor Elliott, any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to item 3. Somebody want to put that motion on? Councillor Elliott.
That application BP 2019-04, including the following variances to be approved. The
Okay.
variances are signed by law and signed by law 2054 and 2054 with the drive.
Okay, so that's the fascia sign and the drive-through menu boards. Second for that motion, Councillor Ryan. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item number 4, someone want to put that on? Councillor Brooks Hill.
The final issuance of DP 2019-04 be subject to the following. Receipt of financial security for the amount of $35,111.57 for landscaping works, which supplements works identified in DP 2018-05 as specified in the attached development permit DP 2019-04. B, receipt for revised architectural plans for the landscaping and the additions as mentioned in the
Okay,
agenda.
in addition of the crosswalks and the landscaping locations. So is there a second for that motion? Councillor Charlotte. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon, Mr. Deutsch. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to another presentation.
I would like to recuse myself due to conflict of interest as the president of the Columbia Environmental Society.
Great, thank you for mentioning that, Mr. Bergeron. Okay, we're ready. Okay, thank you.
Worship members of council, good afternoon. I will be, Marianne and I will be speaking to a Crown land referral for acreage extraction received by the city. And there's a couple locations, which we'll get to, one on West Side Road and one just outside the city limits on Kirkland Forest Service Road. So to go through what we'll be talking about today, first thing we'll talk about is we'll do a referral overview of what we received from the Crown. Then we'll talk about the Kirkland Quarry as it pertains to where it's located within the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District and their jurisdiction. And then we'll move on to the West Side Road Quarry, which falls into the city's jurisdiction, and so we're able to apply the city's land use policies, including zoning and policies within the official community plan. And then we'll move on to what the impacts and implications and community feedback we received, followed by our recommendations. So to go through, we received, as I said, we received one referral for 2 quarries, one within municipal limits and one outside. The Kirkup Quarry is located on the Jordan River Kirkup Forest Service Road to the west of the community, outside of the municipal boundary, within the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District, and the West Side Road Quarry is located within the municipal boundary. Referrals are standards that are issued by the Crown for land tenures, basically as a part of their process to request other agencies and governments to comment. This was as I mentioned, a single referral received for 2 quarries. So we're talking about a single referral received here today. So going through our locations, so the first one, as I mentioned, is the Kirkup, located on the Forest Service Road there. Again, this is outside the municipal boundaries. So we looked at what the implications would be for within the municipal boundary. So just with regards to traffic, we're expecting the referral indicated that they're expecting about 4 trucks per hour to be routed through the community along West Side Road. And it's important to also mention sort of the cumulative impacts that will happen given that there are other quarries in the nearby area. Impacts in the community in relation to this particular site, we indicated 3 key implications. The first being transportation, as I just mentioned, at the 4 trucks per hour utilizing our road. The second is with regards to air quality and potential for production of dust, likely to travel into the municipal boundary. And the third is access to recreation. And the referral indicated that there would be a necessary realignment of the Forest Service Road, which could potentially have impacts on recreational area users, including snowmobilers. So the second portion of this is the West Side Road quarry, which is located within our municipal boundary on West Side Roads, between the West Side Road and the Jordan River. So you can see sort of, I'll try and point this out, the Jordan River here to the west, and West Side Road is to the east. And this mapping is the referral. Again, they're expecting approximately 4 trucks per hour to utilize West Side Road. And again, we wanted to evaluate what the cumulative impact would be with other developments in the area. There are other aggregate extraction facilities nearby, as well as other construction and industry. So with the West Side Road quarry being within our municipal boundaries, we have the opportunity to look at what our land use policies are, including zoning and OCP. So our zoning is RR60, which is a rural residential 60-hectare district. This is a zoning that is intended for larger parcels and areas of land. It's found largely on the edges of the community. And its stated purpose includes accommodation for forestry, mining, transportation, recreation, and water uses and activities. We felt that the need to highlight that, as well as a permitted use located on the 15th permitted use in this zone, includes sort of those first words there, extraction of raw materials from the land, including grading crushing materials, as per the Mines Regulation Act. Our official community plan has identified this area, the vast majority of this particular site would be within what is considered to be the T1 land use. And this is what is called the natural ecosystem land use, and is determined or is designed to be considered against preserving ecological areas, consideration for, as it says at the bottom there, hydrology, vegetation, etc. The quarry is also located partially just on the eastern edge here against West Side Road within the urban reserve area, which is designated for future growth. This is there's a fair number of points to make here. The area is actually located within 4 development permit areas. The West Side Road development permit area is designed to accommodate development with a substantial buffer and consideration for frontage, greenery along the frontage. It's also located within a commercial and industrial development permit area with consideration to industrial development, commercial development, sort of a general development permit area. to accommodate all of these things. So these were a couple of points of doing things like maintaining a high quality image for the area and giving consideration to surrounding land uses, particularly with surrounding residential. It's also located within our environmentally sensitive development permit area. This is it's considered to be very high class environmentally sensitive area. It's also partially located within our floodplain in sort of the bottom corner. I wanted to highlight these two areas, the fact that it is within the environmentally sensitive area and within the floodplain. It is the referral package indicated to us that it's directly abutting or will be within the riparian area. This municipality has policies for the riparian area. As indicated, there's some mapping on this in our official community plan, and for development within the riparian area, we require assessments by qualified environmental professionals and experts in the field. Again, I wanted to highlight the fact that this is located within our environmentally sensitive areas and our floodplain. Our OCP identified the area as a very high value environmentally sensitive area, and also the bottom corner being within the floodplain. These are policies, again, that require a development permit be issued prior to works taking place. It's also important to highlight in particular relation to the West Side Road quarry that there are potential impacts to recreation. There is a trail that goes along the eastern edge of the Jordan River that is a fairly well-used trail, and the quarry would go right around in this area here. It has the potential to impact that particular trail. It also has the potential to impact various informal trail access points that we might not know of but are used by the public. This is an important consideration as we want to ensure that we're preserving our tourism and there's economic implications to removing those recreational opportunities, of course. So the next point with regards to economic implications of aggregate extraction itself as an industry, an updated economic analysis has not necessarily been completed for aggregate extraction, and it's important that we do this as part of our official community plan update. In particular, this is something that would be done through what's called a needs assessment, which evaluates economic needs and demands for aggregate extraction. The environmental sustainability coordinator last completed something along these lines in a report in 2012. So staff received substantial community feedback for this, which highlighted a number of concerns, including noise, air quality, as it pertains to dust being produced by these facilities, riparian area encroachment, potential loss of access to recreation, potential impacts of natural wildlife and disturbances and habitat loss, as well as cumulative impacts of all of the aggregate extraction facilities that are around it. We also received a petition that included 183 signatures that were in opposition. So this brings us to a recommendation. We've made some recommendations as it pertains to these two sites that included in this one referral that are reflective of the feedback that we've received and the research that we've done. In the city's response to this referral, it's important to highlight that we'll also be including the correspondence from the community members in regards to this file. the petition that we received, as well as any and all supporting documentation will be included in our response to the Crown on this particular referral. It's also important to highlight that Council has a couple of options here with regards to the resolutions that we've put forward. Council may make a request to staff to provide additional comments beyond the recommendations that we've made in this report. Council may also make a motion to change or amend the recommendations that we've put forward as well. Questions?
I was just going to clarify, we did contact directly to the Crown and to the Ministry about why they didn't separate out the two referrals because of the two jurisdiction. But we just got back, it came in as one referral, and to make our comments for both of them in one referral, which is a little awkward. So I just wanted you to be aware that we have actually had that conversation with the referring agency. And we've also been in discussion with the CSRD staff in regards to these referrals as well, and had discussions with them in regards to the one that lies in their jurisdiction as well. And also talking about the fact that we both received one referral, and it's difficult for our different jurisdictions because it really should be separated out into one. So just wanted to let you know that we sort of done our due diligence on that as well.
Great, thank you, Michael. Any questions of our finance staff at this point? Councilor Shillette.
When we're talking about a needs assessment that we're going to require in part 3 of the recommendation, it says that the application for gravel extraction specific to West Side Road Quarry require a needs assessment and a development permit as per the OCP as the lands line West Side Road commercial industrial development permit areas. So when you're talking about having this needs assessment as part of our OCP update, by asking the province, does this affect funding for that at all, or would they help? I'm assuming it would be us that would be responsible for doing this needs assessment.
Oh, I'm sure they're not going to fund that sort of thing, or at least I don't know of any grants. This way, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, we were in discussion with the CSRD in regards to needs assessment, because this has come up for them as well.
Right.
And one of the things that can happen is the applicant can be referred to do a needs assessment, so it's the applicant's cost.
Right.
So that's what we're proposing, is that we go back to the referral agency and request a needs assessment, because to the best of our knowledge it has not been done.
Okay.
But that would be something we would be requesting for them to complete.
Yeah, it's definitely this whole process and all the comments and everything, the research I've been doing, it really opened my eyes to just how much is going on out there. And especially if there's other applications in the works and they're wanting to do more, but yet we love our natural trails and everything. It seems like a solid conflict.
Yeah, it is. And so when we talk about, because these are referrals coming to us and we can weigh in with our opinions, we cannot stop these things going forward in their tracks. Is that my understanding?
Yes, this is an interesting situation where we're being referred from the province. The province has the jurisdiction, it's their lands, their crown lands are referring to us to get our comments. We have land use policies, one that says permits it, which is our legal tool, the zoning, and our OCP, which is a policy-driven document, which has a slightly different take on the lands. And so that's something that we will need to address moving forward with the zoning bylaw to align with the OCP.
Great. Okay, so I'd like to do these in the order that they're at. So if we can put the first one on the table.
Just a couple of questions.
Okay, go ahead.
The gist of it is J&J, the operator in that zone, is running out of gravel. He's got two options to find. He's submitted two options of where he can go. Your argument about increased traffic doesn't make sense to me. First of all, he's taking one, closing down one that's running out of aggregate and opening another one. There's no increase in traffic. So that's a bit of a main point in my take. But the reality is the sites that are there are too close to our community, and the dust and the noise and the silicate issues are a big conflict
bit of a problem. I'm just curious, where else might they go? We need aggregate, period. Any construction is going to be part of it. Maybe our growth is going to be dependent upon it. I mean, what other alternatives are there? And that's part of what needs to be explored.
Ms. Wright, go ahead.
Yep, all good comments. And part of it is understanding the needs assessment in the area. We're aware of other Crown lands that may be coming forward with other applications, so it's growing very fast. So understanding that needs and where's the best place to mitigate dust, environmental, I think that's a piece of work that we're suggesting in our referral be done, because we all understand the economic need for aggregate, absolutely. But it's that whole understanding the bigger picture. Again, it's sort of incremental instead of looking at the aggregate amount, pardon the pun, of all those pits together. And we're having a good conversation with CSRD and our counterparts there, and they're aware of applications coming forward that we haven't got yet. And it would be really helpful actually to be more proactive and talking with our provincial partners here about what is the plan, like a resource-based plan, so that we actually understand that, so that we can promote economic and understand that, but put it in the best place possible.
You got a second question? So I think, Councillor Ryan?
Until that plan gets identified, is there any appetite for giving them sort of like conditional use of that spot, or is that crazy? I don't know.
Unfortunately, we don't have the ability.
I mean, like recommending to them, like, you know, this isn't something we want to be a permanent location, but if we could use it, let them use it if they run out for a couple years until you guys have a plan, and then repurpose that land. I don't know if that's...
Well, the proposals are always for 5 to 10 years. We've seen that. So we have other gravel pits that are operating and been proposed for 5 to 10 years, and they are in excess of that period of time. So when we look at those sorts of things and say, okay, what's going to be best for the community? So had this proposal come to us and it was further up West Side Road or further west of town, more into an area that's not going to affect the community, there probably wouldn't be much discussion as to what we think is going to be the best for the community. Every time the provincial government or the federal government announces that we're going to do a road project, we seem to get some application coming to us for aggregate extraction. And so we look at that. So there's been a problem sitting on council prior to. We've had many people in the community come to us with concerns about their health, and because of the silica dust blowing across, that sort of thing. So there's always issues about those sorts of things. The things are, yes, we need the aggregate, we need to build the roads, that sort of thing. Then it comes down to, okay, is this the best place at the current time? So we can register our opposition or our approval to the provincial government because it's a referral coming to, but we have to do it within the confines of our own bylaws. And so that's kind of where we're at with that sort of thing. So I want you to bear in mind when you're talking about this thing, there's community members that have come forward, they've expressed their concerns, but also Ms. Wade has just said there may be other applications coming forward in different areas. So we just want to keep that in mind. Councillor Schiller.
Just going into this needs assessment a little bit more, because I notice it's mentioned in the recommendation, but it's not capitalized. And I'm wondering if that's clear enough with, if we're looking for something that's going to show the economic need for aggregate, but then I'm also hearing conversation around the environmental impact of that aggregate and that bigger, longer term plan of, okay, if we need X amount, what are our options to get it? Where can we get it where it's not going to have this major impact? Can we flesh that out a little bit more rather than, I'm just wondering if needs assessment is going to be clear enough, that if we're going to get the answer that we're looking for, or if they'll just put something together.
Ms. Wade.
Yep. When we go to respond to this, we can expand upon the conversation because it's an online.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can actually expand upon the points that you're raising.
Right.
And make sure that they're in there.
Yeah.
And then we can formalize it in a letter as well, and make sure that that gets distributed to the CSRD and various.
Yeah, because it seems like this whole political game, especially at the seniors tables, where they'll look at something, oh, well, this got a lot of opposition, so we won't do that, but we'll do this over here. There's no overarching overarching picture of what does this mean in the long term for our community. Because yeah, whack-a-mole is not going to be a viable solution to this. But asking for that bigger picture plan in a very clear way so they can't just say, oh, well, see, we did it.
So when we talk about our OCP and some of our land reserve for other things, is that correct, Ms. Wade? We're talking about land reserve for what? For industrial, for residential, or have we defined what that means?
So in our OCP, like we have urban reserve, right? And the other one is urban growth, I believe, if I got it right. And we have to flesh that out in the OCP, and in order to do that, we actually need to have that, what I call a needs assessment. And we'll be working with Ingrid on this, is, looking at what we need to support economic development, because it's not just aggregate lands, it's industrial lands, commercial retail, so there's a broader picture coming out of this that will inform then future land uses that we can identify for those uses in the future, and that'll be an amendment to the OCP.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, the fact that mining is an accepted use in this area kind of poured back a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so any further questions or comments? Do we want to start with item number 1? Somebody want to put that on the table, please?
Sure, I'll do that.
Okay.
That the referral for the proposed Kirkup quarry not be supported, and the response address comments on the basis of environmental concerns and impact to road systems.
Is there a second for that motion? Councillor Elliott. Any further discussion on that motion? So I have a statement here that I'm going to read on behalf of Councillor Cross. Normally I wouldn't be reading these things, but because he and I had not had a chance to discuss this before he sent it to me, it's going to be a one-off. I'm going to read it today, and so that the community can hear. He's not able to vote. He's not here in the chamber, but I want everyone to at least hear what he has to say. And it goes, good afternoon, Mayor and fellow councillors. I regret that I'm out of town. Business needs meant that I could not attend this council meeting. Since I am not in attendance, I cannot vote. Nonetheless, it's important for me that my fellow citizens know clearly how I stand on the issue of the quarry referrals that Revelstoke's been asked by the province to offer an opinion on. To that issue, I will state without reservation that I'm against any further quarry development, either within our city limits or within adjacent lands. I've given this much reflection, and I thought my reasons are fourfold. First and foremost, concern over environmental degradation in general. Second, concern over and the loss and impairment of a treasured local natural recreation area. Third, concern over the health impacts on our citizens. And fourth, concern over the potential impact on our visitor experience and the potential economic losses related to that. We are a resource-based town, I know that, and I applaud that. And I support that continuance, as I believe that all our economic engines need to be kept healthy and growing. But these planned quarries are closer to where people live and are by nature very invasive and disruptive to lands that are important to our community and our people. They are also very noisy and dusty and could easily impact the quality of life our citizens have. I believe that the economic benefit of increased quarry activity could vastly overshadowed by the negative impact and losses, all to the detriment of Revelstoke and its citizens. I would therefore like it on public record that I'm opposed to these applications being supported. Thank you, Stephen Cross, Councillor for Revelstoke. So that's the comment. I as well, am going to support the staff where they say we do not support the Kirkup quarry. I firmly believe that not only is it in an area that's invasive to our way of life, but our citizens have basically indicated to us, another quarry in that place? No. So I agree, I will not support the Kirkup quarry. Any further comments? Okay, I'm going to ask the question. So the referral here is not supporting this quarry. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Going on to item number 2.
Should we invite Mike back?
No, we cannot until we're done.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
So item number 2, does someone want to put that, Councillor Ryan?
That the staff complete the referral for the proposed West Side Road quarry outlining the city's concerns and the response to be completed to address comments on the basis of existing city policies, environmental concerns, low economic impact, and significant neighborhood opposition.
Is there a second to that motion? Councillor Charlotte, any discussion on that motion? I believe this is probably the best that we can do with this motion is talk about our existing policies, our concerns, our community members' concerns, and we really feel that this will be a low economic impact. We do need gravel, and again, as I've said before, if that was up further upside West Side Road, out of harm's way of our residents, or further out west along the highway somewhere, I think there wouldn't be a question that that would be a suitable area. But this is just another impact of existing, on existing quarries, just adding to it. And I think that this is the best way the staff can deal with it. So I'm in favor of the comments here. So any further comments on item number 2? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to item number 3. And I'm going to ask Ms. Lowe regarding this, is there, if we wanted to add something that that council and community are not in favor of another quarry, even though we're asking for a needs assessment, can we do that, or are we crossing the line with our legalities?
Well, resolution number 2 is going to
cover
give us
that
authority for what we can and cannot ask for. Resolution number 3 is in addition. We're asking for this stuff in addition.
Okay, good. Then that covers that. Thank you. So I want to put motion number 3 on. Councillor Charlotte.
That staff provide province with the request that the application for gravel extraction specific to the West Side Road quarry require a needs assessment and development permit as per the OCP, as the lands lie in the West Side Road and commercial industrial development permit areas.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Elliott. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Elliott.
Just curious, has there been any indication provided by J&J how long their people will last?
Yes, the licensed occupation, or you mean their current pit?
The current pit.
No, I don't have that. All it states is that it's coming to its end. I don't know if that's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, don't know.
That's going to deeply influence the needs assessment when that happens, because my take is if they're getting to the end, they're telling you it's getting to the end, it's probably getting to the end. So it's time to move. I don't know what a needs assessment, how much time do we need to get that together, or whether it's a proposal has to be developed or what has to be done.
So my understanding is with a needs assessment, it's on the applicant to provide that. So they would do that, and that's going to take, I don't know, 3 months to do. And I also understand that in the CSRD, needs assessments have been asked for in relation to for other gravel pits as well. So it's not an unknown. It's just something that had not been asked for in this application. So we're bringing that to the province's attention.
Councillor Charlotte.
I'm curious as to what is the end of that? What is the end of life for that expiring gravel pit look like? Like if it runs out of gravel, what do they have to? Is there any regulations on what they have to do with it? What does it look like at the end of all that? Is it a big open hole that they just walk away from?
Ms. Waite, will you weigh in on that?
Very good question. The province would have some form of remediation plan. I don't know what that remediation plan is, but that's something we could reach out and find out about, because they are supposed to reclaim them, like, and have, planting or do something to those areas. So that's a good question, and I could find that out.
Yeah, because one of the areas, I can't remember which part of it was, they were talking about protecting agricultural lands, but yet it allows extraction, like mining. So I'm wondering how that gets reconciled, that once they're done with this, what happens? And like you're saying, Councillor Elliott, if one of them is going out of commission, then rolling this one in, but then what happens to that out of commission?
My understanding, if I'm bold to say, I think they are supposed to remediate it to some degree.
Yeah.
Whether that happens or not is another thing.
Yeah.
Right? When it's kind of out of sight, it's out of mind.
Yeah.
So, and now we're talking about, I just want to talk a little bit about this proponent. You're talking about, we do not know if they're putting in other applications for other spots. So we can't just say, well, they're going to be out of business. How do we know that? If we say we don't want it here, that doesn't mean that doesn't give them the opportunity to apply elsewhere before their existing spot is end of life. Right? So I just want you to be aware of that. So it's not that we're forcing them out of business. That's not the case. So any further discussion on item number 3? Councilor Ross.
Just a clarification, so this third resolution, that's not for all different subsequent locations, it's just specific to the West Side Road one. So we're not asking the province to require them to have a needs assessment for other locations, just if they were to pass the West
Just
Side.
for this one, because this is the only one that's before us
Yeah.
for the referral.
Okay.
If other quarries come to us, then we would have to ask for a needs assessment for that sort of thing.
If we want.
If we need it. Okay. Anything further on this motion on the table? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you both, Miriam and Michael. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going on to a presentation for Development Services, Mackenzie Village, MDA. Did you grow roots up there?
Familiar with the location of this site. Since it was last in front of council, phase 1 of Mackenzie Village has been subdivided away. So this is the parcel we're dealing with at the present time. And for context up here, I've put the existing zoning, but I apologize, that is not working on the projector at all. But we have CD zoning for this particular site, CD 17 zone, which allows for a range of commercial uses and a range of residential uses based on a zoning plan. And we have effectively all single-family zoning around here with some heavy industrial up here where the sawmill is. And then this checkered zoning down here is the resort lands. So, and then of course there's an elementary school over here, and this is an existing mobile home park zone, which is currently vacant, I believe. So the background on this is that the site was rezoned from R1 to CD17 in November 2016, and at the same time, the master development agreement that exists currently was approved by council. In May of 2017, a development permit was issued by council for phase 1, and that was to construct 4 to 6 townhouses, and those were built over the next year. They're now all occupied. In September 2017, a development permit application for phases 2 and 3 was made, and over the course of 2018, we reviewed that and had various conversations with the applicant. Starting in January of this year, we began preparing and negotiating for a modification agreement to the master development agreement, which will facilitate the development permit application that will be brought forth at a subsequent meeting. So what we're considering today, what council's considering today, is to approve to move forward with provisions or amendments to provisions of the existing master development agreement. That would include updates to the concept plans which effectively increases the size of phase areas 2 and 3 and reduces the size of phase areas 4 and 5, and also add a new road in between those phase areas. To update the CD zoning plan with the same corresponding size and layout changes, and to update the trail network plan again with corresponding layout changes. Those updates, text updates within the amendment will reflect phase 1 completion, some clarifying language throughout, which I'll go into a little more detail afterwards, and an inclusion of a definition of substantial compliance. Some key points for this proposal to bear in mind as we go through this is that the plans in the MDA that are being amended were conceptual, and they were prepared without determination of final building locations, final parcel siting, and a number of other factors that are considered when a developer does detailed design. Detailed design is done at each individual stage, so that based on what is happening, based on where the market goes, based on topography, servicing, what's been done in surrounding phases, these things might change. In this case, topography and location of roads were key factors. The site functionality that will eventually result here was driven by access, by that access road that I mentioned, the provision of open space on the site, the provision of parking, and topography again. And one key important point to remember is that the permitted uses and the maximum densities of the CD zone are not being altered by this MDA amendment. We're updating the concept plans and we're changing some wording in that document. Key points on the master development agreement itself, more general. This is registered on the title of the property as a covenant. That makes it a contract, a binding contract between the developer and the city. It is not to be confused with a phase development agreement or any other servicing or development agreement that it's identified in legislation. It does not supersede zoning, but it does control comprehensive aspects of development across a large site. It does not control building form and character, and the amendments to the MDA are subject to a public hearing if the proposal is not substantially compliant. So built into the language of the master development agreement is a provision that says if the MDA is modified, then it is subject to provisions of the Local Government Act. That provision would be a public hearing. So what council is considering today is to move forward with this and direct staff to schedule that public hearing, and then after that public hearing, council has the option to further consider this to move forward. One thing I want to mention there, going back to a previous bullet point, is that the MDA controls comprehensive aspects of development. So when you've got zoning deals with use and density, setbacks, height on a particular parcel. The MDA accompanied a rezoning of a large area of land in which there was a concept but not a detailed plan. So the master development agreement identifies the comprehensive aspects of development, such as parkland and trail locations, phasing locations, servicing concepts to ensure that it's feasible. It accommodates traffic impact assessments, required infrastructure contributions from that, and then contributions to off-site infrastructure improvements that may result from the master development agreement itself. So rather than just put zoning in place and not necessarily understand what's going to happen, the zoning is in place in the master development agreement and informs future development based on that zoning. Pause, breathe. So visuals of what we're doing here. The original CD zoning plan is on the left, and the amended version is on the right. I've put these in your report, and rather than go through them one by one, I'm going to have a slide with the details on it. Amendments to the concept plan are the same as the zoning plan. The road has been included, and the phase areas have been increased in size. And again, with the trail network plan, it's been updated to reflect those changes. Some other amendments that are being proposed to the MDA is to include an updated traffic impact assessment, which reflects phases 1, 2, and 3. To add Schedule O. So the modification agreement itself that's in your package, it defines a number of particular changes. The amended and restated MDA is the new MDA with all of those changes built into it. So that will be added as a schedule. So in fact, the new MDA becomes a schedule of itself. Sorry about this. It's like trying to explain how to assemble Lego verbally. Some of the other sections that are being amended here. 1A was a registration error, so there was actually a minor amendment made to the original MDA. That was supposed to be an amendment to section 1A, and there was a registration area. This is a legal complication. When I say legal, I mean when the lawyers draft the documents to register its title. So that's, we can call that an administration issue. Section 2, we're adding a definition of substantial compliance. This is a key component of the amendment. Substantial compliance will now be defined as an increase in parcel size by no more or less than 10%. So when the developer comes in for, say, phase 5, that phase area can change up to 10% as a decrease or an increase, and that will be defined as substantial compliance. If the developer wanted to expand that more, then it would be subject to an additional MDA amendment. 6.4 is to add clarity for the financing and construction of roads. You'll notice on the site plans that there's a corner cut over here. So that corner cut's been put in place to accommodate a potential traffic control at this intersection, which could be a roundabout. But the corner cut was not intended to imply that the roundabout was a certainty. So 6.4 was added to clarify what that may mean in the future and how financing and construction of roads will occur, and effectively that is that it is bound by the provisions of the Local Government Act. And the remaining sections, I'm not going to go through them, but they are, again, administrative corrections. Panning out a little bit here, the proposal today is to update the concept plans that I showed you and to amend the text in the MDA. This is, of course, being driven by a development permit. The development permit is at a stage where it's nearly ready to be brought forward to council. It's important to have visuals so that we understand what's going on here, but the development permit's not up for consideration today, neither is the form and character, the specifics of it, but it is important to have it here as a visual so we understand what's happening. So 4 buildings on the site, some surface parking, and underground parking is underneath all of these buildings, and some public open areas. The original phase boundary area was approximately across here. If you see that line that is part of the architectural drawing here, that's a rough approximation of where the phase areas originally were. So the increase in area is accommodating a more spacious layout and the addition of this road up here. Summary of changes is that the developable area increases to phase 2 and 3 of 20% and 8%. The reason why, that should read phases 2 and 3. The reason why 3 is only 8% is because of road dedication over here. The total increases to phase 2 and 3 are 37% and 48%. So that accounts for this entire road up here and this entire road over here. There's some math here that's impacting this because this road was not originally considered in phase 3, so that number's been added, which is why that number is so much bigger. The new access road is amended into the plans, so I'm going to back up a few slides here, and you'll see when the original one, that road was not shown, where now it's being shown. And then a relocation of a multi-use pathway. I'll back up a couple slides again. And originally there was a pathway shown on the west side of Nelson. Now it's being shown on the east side. That's not even reflected in these plans, but the east-west road will accommodate sidewalks and pedestrian movements, and that's been added. Justification for these changes is that the access road location is more functional and desirable than a frontage road. Originally, in some of the preliminary concepts, there would have been a frontage road right beside Nickel Road, so you would have had Nickel, you would have had a sidewalk, perhaps a landscape buffer, and then an additional road. If you've been to other communities that have frontage roads, they're unfortunate. It's better to have it separated by buildings. The larger area results in increased open space for the public and increased amenity space for residents and the public. The uses and densities have not changed. They're already permitted by zoning, and what's being proposed in that development permit falls well below the threshold. In addition to that, the applicant did scale back the proposal, the request to staff. So there's less commercial space than what was originally proposed in September of 2017 to now, to the tune of almost a 40% reduction. And we've decreased the amount of surface parking and added more underground residential parking. And in our planning opinion, these are reasonable changes. So the recommendation is to move forward to a public hearing for further consideration.
Councilors, any questions before we put the motion on the table? Councilor Knight.
If we don't go to a public hearing, that would mean we can't go ahead with this amendment, right? Because it's mandated by, like, the legislation that we have to go.
Correct. And it's a good way for the community to weigh in on these changes and let us know as a council as to what they feel about it.
I'm just wondering, like, realistically, so much work has been done at this point to get to this point. What kind of changes can we make? You know, like, what kind of, I don't know, value is that going to provide?
So,
I mean, I'm all for public consultation, don't get me wrong. I'm just curious what that might actually look like.
some this way to weigh in.
So the process with this particular document is because it is a contract between the city and the applicant, is that the form of the contract has been discussed back and forth. It's an agreement between the city and the applicant. And so what is before council now is that agreement, like a contractual business arrangement. And so really the document is moving forward as it is because it is a negotiated contract that is before council for consideration.
Right. So there could be additional changes made?
Well, the community may come back and say, we would like X, Y, and Z, and that would be something that planning would have to discuss with the proponent. And the idea of having a public hearing is to weigh in from the community as to what they wish to see in their community. This way you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, and I want to be really clear that the development permit, as Mr. Sturgeon has said, is that is not open for negotiation. What we're doing is just going to the key components of the MDA to bring clarity. So to the point about plus and minus 10%, that number needed to be in there because previously it was not in there. So that is a very key component. So, but we have negotiated with the applicant key components to provide more bookmarks around how we go forward and review development application for the next phases. So it has refined how we go through the development approval or process for the next phases.
Yeah, I guess what I'm just curious about is by going ahead with this amendment, we're trying to avoid having to do this again for the future phases, right? Like it gives us a little bit more flexibility, but also a little bit more clarity for the developers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Ms. Holt?
Councillor Ryan, I think I know what you're trying to explain or ask is, would the public have influence on adding different conditions or different aspects to the actual MDA? The public hearing will reflect only the changes that we've made to the MDA, and only comments could come in on those specific changes. So it would be narrowed into a very small area that the public could actually comment on.
So I can't ask Mr. Evans for a pink fire hydrant?
No, you cannot. So that would be, does that clarify?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Good.
Okay. Mr. Councilor.
And what about a timeline? Do you have an idea how long this might take or public hearing? When that might schedule?
I believe we schedule it for the 13th of August. And then council will have the ability that night to either approve or not approve and defer to another council meeting if they want.
So everyone's comfortable with the timeline, the progression? Is that correct?
And you said evening? Sort of the
Yeah, I believe it's an evening, is it not? Or is it during the day?
I think it's
Scheduled, our procedures, bylaw states that we do our public hearings within our regularly scheduled meetings unless we want to schedule something special.
So it'll be within our meeting.
It would be the afternoon, and also legislation just requires that we do reach out to the public for a specific amount of time. If council wished to do the public hearing a little bit sooner at a special council meeting, we could also consider that. So there is a couple different options. We just need to advertise for a couple weeks consecutively in the paper.
Maybe that's a discussion with the developer and to say, do you need to get going sooner or?
It's actually a council decision.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm quite comfortable with the way it's set. That's been discussed with the developer, correct, Mr. Sturgeon? Yeah. Okay. Any further questions of Mr. Sturgeon or Ms. Wade?
Just one more. Just for public interest, in the retail space, what's the maximum size that's been agreed upon?
The maximum size allowed or what's being proposed?
Proposed, both, I guess.
Well, so the CD17 zone is divided into two areas. The B and C they labeled. Area B has a maximum of 3,000 square meters. Area C has no upper limit on it.
But per retail outlet, per outlet.
There's a maximum 200 square meters per retail unit is the maximum zone.
2,000 square feet, roughly.
Approximately, yeah.
Councilor Ryan?
And is there restrictions on zoning for the actual residential units, like whether they can be rented? I think that's, or is that all part of the CD17 zoning?
There's no specifics on tenure.
Okay, that's what, yeah, that's one.
Any further questions?
I just have one more comment.
Okay.
I'm really glad to see this come to council. My understanding is that it's been a long time in the running, and we obviously have a need for more housing in all different types in Revelstoke, so I'm really glad to see that this is coming about. It's a shame that that it took us this long, but I'm just happy to see it now.
Great. Any further comments or questions before we put the motion on the table? Councilors, I'm going to ask if somebody would like to put item number 1 on the table. Councilor Charlotte.
Sure. That the application for the proposed modification agreement to the existing master development agreement for Mackenzie Village be approved to proceed.
Is there a second for that motion? Councilor Ryan. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Item number 2. Councilor Charlotte.
That a public hearing be scheduled for August 13th, 2019 for proposed master development agreement modification pursuant to the provisions of the master development agreement and part 14 of the Local Government Act.
Is there a second for that motion? Councilor Ryan. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon. I appreciate your presentation.
I'm going to recuse myself for the next resolution because I work for.
Awesome. Thanks, Councilor. So item 11B, Finance Big Eddy Water System, second reservoir construction. Does someone want to put this motion on the table? Councilor Brooks Hill.
The BVI Construction Limited be awarded the design build contract based on the negotiated proposal price of $712,335.75.
Excluding GST. Is there a seconder for that motion? All right, any discussion on the motion? Go ahead. Mr. Komanowski's in the room. He should be able to answer. So we're needing to build this this reservoir, and this is the best price that we've come up with, correct?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is that price in line with the original projection?
Reasonably, yes. Yes.
How reasonable?
Well, I would say within the 10 percentile.
It's pretty good when we started a project, 3-4 years ago, and we're coming up and we're kind of within that budget range. That's pretty decent, I think.
It's the final phase of the water installation for Big Eddy.
So final phase of building a reservoir, is there more, there's more construction
Yeah,
to be
there's,
done after?
as the report says, there's other tasks to be completed with the SCADA hydrants, other lines to be installed, et cetera, et cetera. There's still some work to be performed.
Yep. Any further questions? Councilor Brooks Hill?
I just want to say I'm happy to see this moving forward.
Councillor Charlotte, any comment?
Go local team. Awesome to see, yeah, just seeing the different price points, and it's nice to see our company, local companies being competitive.
Great.
Those support the team.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Allow our councillor back in, please, Cindy. And we're moving on to item 13, the UBCM resolution. The resolution is in your package. So, Councillor Elliott, you brought that up earlier, and Councillor Charlotte was going to weigh in. Now's the time.
Yeah, so it's interesting because hearing the delegation from the library mention this as well, and I've heard this conversation a lot. There's a big difference between poverty reduction and poverty alleviation. And poverty alleviation is making it less sucky to be poor. Poverty reduction is reducing the number of people who are dealing with poverty. So when we're talking about food security and food systems, which I totally agree are super important and we need strong food systems, things like the food bank is a poverty alleviation method. It's making it a little bit less horrible to be broke. Whereas a lot of the conversation that I hear about this is trying to make food cheaper, which is not helping our food system. And I think this resolution asking for food security to be part of the income-based solutions is that making food cheaper is not solving our problems. That food security is at its heart a lack of income.
Right.
If that clarifies, it helps a little bit.
Any comment?
Oh, I just think that the message has been clouded to this point. I mean, everything about food security until the last meeting was about preserving the ALR, preserving our seed base, and climate change, and growing locally and eating locally. That was food security.
Yeah.
Now we found out that was poverty reduction, or poverty reduction, or easement. So that's where this recommendation is going. And I'm saying it's legitimate. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying up to this point it's been mixed, muddled together.
And I think that's why they brought this forward, is that it's frustrating when the conversation is all around saving seeds. It's missing that middle piece, right? Where we're talking about shop local, but when people can't afford to shop local, we can tell them to do so all we want, where we need to have this as part of that conversation. But I'd love to talk about it more because, like I was saying earlier, I'm happy to speak to this at UBCM, and we'll be reaching out to that contact that was mentioned in this, just to find out more about what this looks like at UBCM, because it's my first time going to. But I'd really like to make a strong case to help clarify that message so that it is more of a healthy conversation. How do we make this better?
So then the question lies, you've got the resolution in your package. Are you comfortable with that resolution? We've sent it off to UBCM. They're going to weigh in on it. They're going to do one of the three things. They either support it, they do not support it, or they'll be neutral on it. And then the whole thing will go to the provincial government dealing with that sort of thing. So I just, if you're comfortable with what's here, I think this has already been sent to UBCM. I would state I think we should leave it the way it is. If there's other resolutions that you feel that we want to do from the floor when we're there, that can be probably entertained. But at this point in time, I think this is appropriate because it's dealing with the problem. And the problem is financial. People don't have the resources to buy the food that they need. Going back to the saving of seeds, sometimes there's some quality in the seed product by saving it. So some of the farmers like to save their seeds because they know the quality of their product. It's a little different issue, which is what you're alluding to.
Well, it was farmland and all this bigger issues, like our food preservation, our ability to grow locally and eat locally, and it's going to change the way we interact with our environment here. But the other issue is Revelstoke is exceptionally well on the sustainability. One in 7 is the average. We're 1 in 30 households that have used the food bank. So it's a recognition that what we've done here is exceptional. It should be through community connections. We've done as a community, we should feel somewhat proud that we support our disadvantaged better than most.
Well, I think it's wonderful that we have these, entities in our community to support our community. The sad part is that we have to have these entities.
Yeah.
That's really, when the food bank was first opened, the intention was for it to be temporary.
Right.
And now it's pretty ensconced in our way of life. So, any further discussion on this? You're all okay with this resolution as it is going forward? Okay, so I'm going to leave that at that point. Questions from the press?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The resolution you're talking about for the DCM, did you guys come up with that at a committee of the whole meeting? Is that assigned to you? How's that?
It was brought to us by Interior Health and Melissa Hempel. So it was Melissa Hempel and Eli that put it together. So this is a collaborative between Melissa Hempel's work as our food security coordinator and the amazing work she's done, but then her conversations with Anita Eli about how that looks and what that goes forward, because there is so much conversation around, well, we're doing great, we're building up our food systems, we have more local production, but too many people can't afford to buy it. And asking our farmers to try and do it for cheaper is not helping. So I think it emerged from that. They brought it forward to us, and then we're supporting it, taking it forward.
So Anita's with IHA.
Yeah, she's community health.
Liaison.
Yeah, community health liaison with Interior Health.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, I'm going to ask us to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1 CKL and 90.2B of the Community Charter. Councillor Ryan, Councillor Brooks Hill, all those in favor, we're going to go in camera. We'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.